The emphasis of the Connection series is on our focus, because what we focus on is what we're allowing to influence us. But this seems very high level, and we still need to know why our focus is so important. How do we identify when our focus is misplaced? What does it have to do with healing? And what methods will the Connection series use to help you move into refocusing on God and reaching your goals of well-being? First, you need to know that when you have a barrier, something that's inhibiting you from receiving God and His healing, in order for it to be cleared or changed, you have to first shift your focus from being on the issue itself or on the way you feel and put your focus fully on God. The topics covered in the Connection series are specifically designed to show you the most widespread impediments or barriers to achieving this focus. The barriers that I'm referring to are not found in our external worldly environment, but in the internal environment of our own thoughts, words, and then our actions, which can be exceedingly destructive, eroding away at our relationship with God and ultimately our ability to be whole and healed in some or all areas of our life. Not only do we need to identify when our focus is out of alignment with God and our relationship with Him, we also need to be able to quickly and effectively realign and refocus. This is the how of identifying when our focus is out of place. I challenge you to begin seeing the key to overcoming any issue or question you will ever face as being a matter of refocusing, meaning focus on God, His way, and your relationship with Him, and everything else will become clear and resolved according to His power and will. And even will become resolved in a way that's better and more complete than you could have ever planned or expected. The way is stepping out of impermanent worldly solutions and internally held beliefs, and instead choosing to follow Him and His way, which doesn't conform to the limitations of the world. That's not to say that God doesn't work through the world and other people. He absolutely does. And He'll even direct you to those people or tools that may be part of your solution. But in order to be in alignment with that provision, we need to listen for His direction, not just take actions out of fear or habit. So many times in my own life, I've experienced being separated from God's way and remaining stuck, sick, or just being disconnected and lost in the worldly chaos around me. I would search and search for answers and beg for God to show me what to do, and feel frustrated when I didn't hear from Him. I would stay in this place of frustration and disconnection until I finally realized that the main issue wasn't what was going on around me, it was what was going on within me. I realized that my internal environment was a mirror of the world, with my own chaotic thoughts, emotions, and choices rooted in the chaos outside of me instead of being rooted in God and His peace and healing. How could I hear from God when I was so far from Him in my own thinking and behavior? And how could I be at peace when I was focused on everything but the source of my peace? I came to realize that I was unintentionally fostering barriers in me that were inhibiting my connection with God and the healing and answers that I so desperately wanted Him to give me. Once I began to find liberation from that turmoil by refocusing on what was important, I wanted to make sure that I always knew how to consistently get back to that place of internal connection to God. And to help others learn how to do this, I created the Focus Method. But before moving into what the Focus Method is, let's first look at why our focus is so important. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep in perfect and constant peace the one whose mind is steadfast," meaning committed and focused on God. This focus includes both our inclination or our preferences and dispositions, and our character, meaning our personality and how we behave. And it says we're able to stay focused on God and in perfect peace when we trust and take refuge in Him with hope and confident expectation, meaning we have a sense of assurance and belief in God and what He has done and is able to do in every difficulty or need that we have. It seems that this is highlighting how, regardless of what it is, our focus is the most important factor in anything we face. This truth has been reflected in my own life and perhaps even in yours. I found after much trial and error and countless personal experiences with feeling disconnected, and even testimonies from others overcoming their own sense of disconnection from God, that the disconnection we feel is almost always created by our misplaced focus and is likely found within one or more of the categories of the focus method. These categories are faith, openness, corresponding action, understanding, and silencing distractions. Each one of these categories highlights areas you may be focusing on other things, such as the issues or the world, instead of God, and how you may be allowing barriers to continue to exist within these categories that are obstructing your focus on God or even creating misperceptions that damage your relationship with Him. The focus method offers a quick and effective checklist of sorts where, if you're feeling unmotivated, overstressed, prone to sickness, or being easily influenced by your emotions, temptations, or just the general chaos of the world, you can do a quick assessment and ask God to reveal to you how you're doing in all 5 categories of the focus method. At the end of this course, you'll go over each category and what they mean in more detail. But for now, I just want to briefly highlight how you can use the focus method to quickly ask yourself those 5 questions. One main question for each category to effectively gauge where your focus is and how to quickly get back on track. First is faith. This category asks the question, are you focused on faith or fear? Eventually, you realize that anything that's not rooted in a strong faith in God is rooted in fear in one form or another. Fear of rejection, of failure, fear of not excelling or not getting what you want, fear of being hurt, fear of love, fear of being vulnerable or of being alone, and so many more. So this category asks, do you truly have faith, have God's faith within you that you're focused on, or are you operating in fear, which disempowers that faith? Category 2 is openness. Are you focusing on being open and accessible to God, giving every part of yourself over to Him, giving over every situation to Him? Or are you hiding from God, knowingly or unknowingly closing yourself off from Him and operating in fear, your ego, or self driven desires and goals, and remaining disconnected from His direction for you? Corresponding action asks, are you focused on working to align your every thought, word, and action with God? Or are you allowing the world to influence your works through your thoughts, words, beliefs, and actions? Where are your own thoughts, words, and choices not matching up with God's will or with the healing that you're seeking? How are you working with God and how are you unintentionally working against Him? Then there's understanding. This category asks, are you focused on gaining a deeper understanding of God's truth or on the lies and illusions of the world? So, are you focusing on the truth or are you focusing on the lies? Do you live and operate in God's truth, what He says about you and for you, embodying it and allowing it to define you? Or do you live and operate in what the world says and allow those things to influence, derail, or limit your connection to God and your state of well being? Finally, silencing distractions asks, are you focused on a relationship with God or are you distracted from Him? Silencing distractions here represents the overall mentality or drive of your daily life. Are you making room for God or are you constantly distracting yourself and staying too busy for God or avoiding a deeper relationship with Him. When you begin to recognize that almost every form of disconnection and resulting imbalance that we feel is rooted in at least one of the 5 categories of the focus method, the issues you face don't seem so insurmountable, and you can easily see where the source of your disconnection is coming from. Identifying why you feel disconnected is more than half the battle. Then you can learn to quickly give that over to God, running to the Father again and again, letting His presence be the source of your inner peace, clarity, and situational transformation. After completing the courses of the Connection series, you'll have a depth of knowledge about each of the 5 major categories of the focus method and how each applies to your connection to God in the areas of faith, corresponding action, time in His presence, and daily practices of praise, prayer, and presence. Each of the focus method categories are found throughout this series in at least 2 or more of the courses. Once completed, you'll be able to use the Connection series at any time, finding the most applicable sections for each in the event you feel stuck and want a quick reference or refresher in faith, silencing distractions, or any of the other focus categories. Throughout all of the courses within the Connection series, practical applications, resources, notes, and exercises are provided to help you solidify your learning and maturity in your relationship with God and begin to immediately apply it to your daily life. Our staying connected to God isn't a linear process. The stresses and situations in our lives are constantly changing and testing us in different ways. We may struggle with having strong faith in one season of our lives, then later we find issues in our corresponding action. Staying connected to God is a way of life, and its challenges change as we grow and change. The focus method is a simple way for you to quickly assess how am I doing in the areas of faith, being open, my actions, experientially understanding and living in God's truth, and spending intimate time with Him. Then, if you identify a deficiency in any of these areas, you can easily refresh yourself in the methods of clearing that barrier and refocusing on God. The more you use this method, the faster and more effortlessly you'll be able to not only reconnect with God, but begin to stay connected for longer. Eventually, your awareness will develop from being reactive to becoming proactive, and you'll quickly recognize a barrier before it takes hold. Now that we've discussed the focus method, let's move to the primary goal of this series, developing an intimate relationship with God. We've talked about this a lot, but what does having an intimate relationship even mean? In the next video, I'll answer this.